Have you ever felt a chill down your spine while standing in a courtroom? A feeling that something wasn't quite right? That justice wasn't blind, but rather, it was peeking through a veil of corruption? Sadly, this feeling is not uncommon. Courtroom corruption is a serious issue that affects people from all walks of life. It undermines the very foundation of our justice system and threatens the rights of every citizen. This essay will shine a light on the dark corners of courtroom corruption. We will expose the tactics used to manipulate the system and silence the voices of the innocent. But this is not just a tale of despair. We will also provide you with the tools and knowledge you need to fight back. We will empower you to recognize your rights and hold those in power accountable for their actions. This information is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who are ready to stand up for what is right, even when it's difficult. It's for those who believe in the promise of a just and equitable society. If you are ready to join the fight against courtroom corruption, read on. The future of justice may depend on it. Corruption in the courtroom is not just an American problem, it's a global epidemic. From small-town courthouses to international tribunals, the pursuit of justice is often tainted by greed, bias, and abuse of power. This corruption takes many forms, from judges accepting bribes to lawyers colluding with opposing counsel, to evidence being tampered with or disappearing altogether. The consequences of this corruption are devastating. Innocent people are wrongfully convicted, while the guilty walk free. Victims of crime are denied justice, and public trust in the legal system erodes. This lack of faith in the justice system has far-reaching consequences, as it discourages people from reporting crimes, cooperating with law enforcement, and seeking help when they need it most. The good news is that people around the world are fighting back against this injustice. Organizations are working tirelessly to expose corruption, advocate for reform, and empower citizens to demand accountability from their judicial systems. These efforts are starting to make a difference, but there is still much work to be done. In recent years, a shadowy initiative known as Project 2025 has sent shockwaves through the legal community. This project, spearheaded by powerful and well-connected individuals, seeks to reshape the American judiciary in their own image. Their goal is to stack the courts with judges who share their ideology, regardless of their qualifications or commitment to impartiality. This project poses a grave threat to the integrity of our judicial system. If successful, it could lead to a future where the law is no longer applied fairly and impartially, but rather it becomes a tool to advance a particular political agenda. This is a chilling prospect, as it would undermine the very foundations of our democracy. It is imperative that we resist this attempt to hijack our courts. We must demand transparency in judicial appointments and hold our elected officials accountable for ensuring that only qualified and impartial individuals are appointed to the bench. The future of our justice system, and indeed our democracy, may depend on it. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, is not immune to the threat of corruption. In recent years, concerns have been raised about the influence of special interests on the court, as well as the lack of transparency in its decision-making process. This lack of accountability erodes public trust in the institution and casts a shadow over its legitimacy. One of the most pressing issues facing the Supreme Court is the need for a binding code of ethics. Unlike other federal judges, Supreme Court justices are not currently subject to a formal code of conduct. This lack of clear ethical guidelines creates the potential for conflicts of interest and undermines public confidence in the court's impartiality. To restore trust in the Supreme Court, we must demand greater transparency and accountability. This includes enacting a binding code of ethics for justices, reforming campaign finance laws to reduce the influence of special interests, and strengthening congressional oversight of the court. Only through these measures can we ensure that the Supreme Court remains a beacon of justice and a guardian of our constitutional rights. Section 5. Judicial power grabs a threat to democracy. In recent times, there has been a disturbing trend of judges overstepping their constitutional boundaries, attempting to legislate from the bench and erode the separation of powers. This judicial activism, often driven by ideological agendas, threatens the delicate balance of our democracy. When judges become activists, they cease to be impartial arbiters of the law, and instead become unelected lawmakers, undermining the will of the people. Adding to this concern is the practice of judge shopping, where litigants strategically file their cases in courts, where they believe they will receive a favorable ruling, often based on a judge's known political leanings. This practice further undermines the perception of judicial impartiality and erodes public confidence in the fairness of the legal system. We must be vigilant in defending the separation of powers and ensuring that judges act as impartial interpreters of the law, not as unelected policymakers. This requires holding judges accountable for their rulings, advocating for legislation that reinforces the separation of powers, and educating the public about the importance of an independent and impartial judiciary. Our democracy depends on it. Section 6. Strategies for Change, Fighting Back. The fight against courtroom corruption may seem daunting, but it is not insurmountable. By understanding the problem and employing effective strategies, we can hold the justice system accountable and demand integrity from those entrusted with upholding the law. One crucial step is raising public awareness about the pervasiveness of judicial corruption and its devastating impact on individuals and society. Another essential strategy is supporting organizations dedicated to exposing corruption and advocating for reform. These organizations work tirelessly to investigate allegations of misconduct, provide legal assistance to victims of judicial corruption, and lobby for legislative changes that promote transparency and accountability in the courts. Furthermore, we must leverage the power of technology and data to identify patterns of corruption and hold corrupt officials accountable. By analyzing court records, financial disclosures, and other publicly available information, we can expose conflicts of interest, track the flow of money in judicial elections, and identify judges who consistently rule in favor of certain parties or special interests. Section 7. Enforcement and Advocacy Tools for Justice. Enforcing existing anti-corruption laws and advocating for stronger legislation are essential components of the fight against courtroom corruption. This involves reporting suspected cases of judicial misconduct to the appropriate authorities, such as judicial ethics committees or law enforcement agencies. While these channels may not always result in immediate action, it is crucial to create a record of complaints and hold the system accountable. Advocacy plays a vital role in strengthening anti-corruption measures. This includes supporting legislation that enhances judicial transparency, such as requiring judges to disclose their financial interests, campaign contributions, and communications with parties appearing before them. Additionally, advocating for reforms that limit the influence of money in judicial elections can help ensure that judges are accountable to the people they serve, not to special interests. Furthermore, engaging in public education campaigns about judicial corruption is crucial to empowering citizens to demand accountability from their courts. By educating the public about their rights, the importance of judicial independence and impartiality, and the signs of judicial corruption, we can create a more informed and engaged citizenry that is better equipped to hold the justice system accountable.